Hey everybody, Matt Barton with this week's Broker Minute or Two. I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. Now we're back into it. I was talking with one of our agents down in St. George, and she correctly stated, "Hey, I'm calling to give you some Broker Minute or Two material." And she was right. So wanted to share with you something in regards to um, property service agreements, long-term property service agreements. You may have heard of these, maybe you haven't, but they're out there. And so just going to start off with this article from March 3rd, 2023, which was right after the Utah legislature wrapped up for 2023. And the headline was, Utah becomes the first state to ban right to listing agreements. So there's companies you can see bolded here. Let me zoom in a little bit, maybe. MV Realty, Sell Whenever, home options. These are a few of the ones that are well known in the state and in other states. And basically, the premise is this: they will go. Typically, I'm not saying I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but they will go to a homeowner, typically a lot of times older, and say, "Hey, we'll give you some money." Tends to be a small amount of money, $800, $1,000, if you sign this agreement saying that if you sell your house, we will be the company to list your house. That's the basic premise of it. There's a little more detail to it, but that's the basic idea. And so, Utah led the charge basically because Cal Musselman, who is a longtime member of the Realtor family and is now state assemblyman, championed this fight. Sure to appreciate him doing that. So I'm going to put on screen here. This is one, and I redacted the pertinent information here, but this is kind of what these recorded docs. So the company will sign a document with the unsuspecting client, and then they will record something like this at the county. So then when we go to list the house and maybe even go to turn around and sell it, all of a sudden the title search says, wait a minute, there's this lien against this property by MBR Realty of Utah or Sell Anytime or whatever those other company names were. And that was the situation today. So, what do we do about that? Well, the good news is with the law change, and I'm going to put these up on screen so we can quickly walk through these. This is kind of a summary of the sections of House Bill 211 that passed in 2023. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details. I'm going to quickly hit the highlights. Basically, it's talking about residential property service agreements. What we just described is this explicitly caps the term of any residential listing service agreement at 1 year. So there's a good little takeaway for us. We may not be doing these 40-year agreements, but we need to be careful that our listing agreements don't exceed a year because it falls under the purview of this law. Okay, the second portion of this talks about what it prohibits these agreements from doing. It cannot run with the land. It cannot be binding on future owners. So if somebody dies and the kids get the property, it definitely want to apply to them. They definitely can't create a lien or an encumbrance on the property, and it prevents brokers from claiming rights that would transfer to future owners or cloud the title. That's a lot of stuff, a lot of protections there. Here's a key one because this came up today. It's like, well, wait a minute. So this law came into being in 2023. What about agreements that were signed between 2023? Not going to get into the Utah Constitution, but there's provisions in there. If a law is enacted and something has been made void, then by extension, anything that was done like that is void. So residential property service agreement that violates subsection 1A up above is void. All agreements exceeding 1 year purporting to bind future owners or creating liens are legally null and unenforceable. And then down here, this is where it gets interesting. The law provides for civil remedies. So if you have one of these liens on your property and you wanted to sue the company, property owners may recover damages if somebody improperly records a void agreement. So that means things that were already there. If they're there, they need to remove them. Any recorded void document is not valid notice to bona fide purchasers and may violate the Wrongful Lien Act. If you're familiar with the Wrongful Lien Act, there are treble damages. So if the company was entitled to $10,000 because of that lien and it's proven to be a wrongful lien based on this new law, they could be sued for $30,000. So kind of interesting. So the summary is simply this. ultra long listings are done away with in this law. We were the first in the nation to do it. You can't allow it to run with the land. You can't encumber the title with a lien and clouding the title. And there are civil and statutory remedies for violators. One final interesting note. I looked up this company, MB Realty of Utah, which then is owned by a company out of Florida, and look at the status. Administratively deceased. I wonder if that's because of the change in the law, that their model no longer works. But remember this came about today. That lien on one of our agents' properties is still there today. I have a feeling that MV Realty of Utah did not go through and clean up all the liens that were now invalidated by this change in the law back in 2023. So if you run across these, now you're a little more equipped to know that your seller does have the remedy to remove them, and that they're definitely not effective or enforceable, even if they were signed prior to the bill passing. I hope that helps. Kind of an interesting little piece of information. Go have a great week, and we'll talk soon.